Hello everyone, and welcome to Behind the Bulletin. Today, we're bringing you a story that has left fans shocked and deeply concerned. What was meant to be one of the happiest moments quickly took a devastating turn. Just hours after a joyful celebration, an unexpected emergency changed everything. Wedding turns into nightmare. Kim Woo Bin rushed to hospital. Shin in tears. What really happened behind the scenes? And why has this story sparked such intense reactions? Stay with us as we uncover the details, starting right now. The celebration was supposed to be flawless. From the carefully chosen venue to the soft glow of lights that wrapped the evening in warmth, everything about the wedding felt like a quiet promise of happiness. Spoke in hushed admiration. Phones discreetly lowered, as if everyone present understood they were witnessing something sacred. For a brief moment, nothing in the world could interrupt it. But stories like this never begin where they end. Long before the night was over, subtle cracks began to form. Some guests later recalled a strange shift in atmosphere, a pause that lingered too long, a smile that faded too quickly. At first, it was dismissed as exhaustion, the natural toll of an emotional day. Yet those small details would soon be replayed endlessly, scrutinized frame by frame, word by word. Then came the whispers. Someone noticed him stepping away earlier than expected. Another claimed they saw concern ripple through a small group near the exit. No announcement was made. No alarm was raised. But silence, when it stretches unnaturally, becomes louder than panic. Within hours, rumors erupted online. Emergency. Hospital. Something went terribly wrong. What had been a celebration transformed overnight into a question mark that refused to settle. Reports contradicted one another. Some claimed it was a precaution. Others spoke in darker tones, using words like collapse and urgent transfer. No official statement followed, and that absence only fed the storm. By morning, headlines had already chosen their narrative. Fans searched desperately for reassurance, refreshing feeds, translating fragments of overseas posts, trying to separate fear from fact. Photos from the wedding, once symbols of joy, were suddenly reinterpreted as foreshadowing. Every expression was analyzed, every gesture questioned. And at the center of it all stood one image that refused to fade, Shin, reportedly seen leaving in tears. No one knew exactly what those tears meant. Shock? Fear? Relief? Or something far more devastating? Those closest to the couple remained silent. No denials. No confirmations. The quiet became unbearable. As the hours passed, concern hardened into dread. Online speculation spiraled, dragging the story further away from certainty. Was this a brief medical scare? Or the beginning of something far worse? Why had no one spoken yet? And why did the timeline feel so fragmented, so incomplete? What was meant to be the first night of a shared future had turned into a maze of unanswered questions. And the nightmare, it seemed, only beginning. By the second day, the story had grown larger than the truth could contain. Each new post added weight. Each translation twisted meaning slightly more. Some accounts claimed hospital staff had been mobilized urgently. Others insisted it was nothing more than routine observation blown out of proportion. The lack of clarity became the story itself. The absence of facts. Imagination took control. Fans remembered past health struggles, connecting dots that may or may not belong together. Old interviews resurfaced. Past photos were dragged into the present, stripped of context, made to carry implications they were never meant to hold. The internet does not wait for answers, it creates its own. Meanwhile, concern for Shin intensified. Reports described her as completely devastated. No one could say who had seen her or when. The phrase spread faster than evidence ever could. It painted a picture too powerful to ignore, a bride standing at the edge of joy, suddenly pulled into fear she never expected to face. Was she crying because she feared losing him? Or because the world had already decided what the story was before she could speak? As hours turned into days, silence remained unbroken. No carefully worded press release. No calm reassurance. Just absence. And absence, moments like these, becomes a mirror, reflecting whatever fear the viewer brings to it. Some began to push back, urging restraint, reminding others that speculation can wound as deeply as truth. But those voices were quieter, drowned out by urgency and emotion. A wedding interrupted by an alleged emergency was simply too dramatic to let rest. Yet behind the headlines and trending tags lay a quieter possibility. That reality was far less sensational than the nightmare being written around it. Perhaps it was a scare. Frightening but manageable. Perhaps the tears were private. Never meant to be public property. Perhaps the story had already drifted far from the people at its center. In moments like this, the line between concern and intrusion disappears easily. From afar turns into pressure. Sympathy becomes demand. Everyone wants closure, even when none is owed. And so the story remains suspended, between fear and restraint, rumor and reality. What should have been remembered as a beginning has instead become a cautionary tale about how quickly joy can be overshadowed, not just by events, but the world watching too closely. Until the truth speaks for itself, all that remains are fragments of a wedding, of a sudden scare, of tears whose meaning no one truly knows. Perhaps that uncertainty is the real nightmare. As the days stretched on, the silence began to feel deliberate. Strategic, deliberate. In the absence of official words, the public created its own narrative, one layer at a time, until the original event was almost unrecognizable beneath the weight of speculation. What had started as concern had hardened into obsession. Every hour without clarification was treated as evidence rather than restraint. Media outlets began revising their tone. Early headlines that hinted at uncertainty were replaced by heavier language. Crisis. Emergency. Devastation. Each word pushed the story further from caution and closer to catastrophe. Even outlets that once urged patience now leaned into ambiguity. Because ambiguity kept attention alive. Behind closed doors, insiders were rumored to be divided. Some claimed there was pressure to speak, to end the chaos before it spiraled further. Others reportedly argued that any statement, no matter how careful, would only fuel more questions. In a world that feeds on immediacy, silence had become both shield and target. Meanwhile, the emotional toll grew unmistakable. Fans gathered online, forming digital vigils that blurred sincerity with anxiety. Messages of support poured in alongside desperate pleas for updates. Please say he's okay. We just need to know. The language was raw, unfiltered, revealing. This was no longer about celebrity curiosity. It was about emotional investment built over years, suddenly shaken. Shin Min's name continued to surface in nearly every conversation. The image of her in tears had taken on a life of its own, replayed in countless imagined scenarios. She crying in a hospital corridor? In a private car? Alone? Away from cameras? Each version became someone's truth, repeated until it felt real. And yet, no photograph confirmed it. No first-hand account could be verified. The story had crossed a dangerous threshold. It no longer needed facts to survive. At the same time, a quieter backlash began to form. Voices emerged questioning the ethics of the frenzy. Was it fair to dissect a medical situation, real or rumored, on what was meant to be the most private day of someone's life? Was concern still concern when it refused to wait, to respect boundaries? These questions did little to slow the momentum. Algorithms favored urgency over nuance. Fear traveled faster than restraint. And the wedding, once a symbol of love and endurance, had become a backdrop for collective anxiety. Began to wonder if the real damage was no longer physical, but emotional. Even if the hospital visit had been minor, the weight of the aftermath was anything but. The pressure to reassure millions. The invasion of grief, real or imagined, and the loss of control over one's own story all carried consequences that no headline could capture. In moments like this, truth becomes fragile. Not because it disappears, but because it struggles to be heard beneath the noise. Every hour that passed reshaped the public's expectation of what the truth should be. Less dramatic than the nightmare being written would feel, to some, like a disappointment. And that may have been the most unsettling realization of all. The story was no longer waiting for facts. It was waiting for confirmation of fear. In the end, what lingers is not a confirmed tragedy, terrified disaster, but the uneasy space between truth and speculation. What was meant to be a beginning became, at least for a moment, a mirror reflecting how quickly joy can be overshadowed by fear, and how easily silence can be mistaken for the worst possible outcome. In the absence of clear answers, imagination filled the gaps, sometimes with care, sometimes with cruelty. This story reminds us of something uncomfortable but necessary. Not every moment belongs to the public, even when the people involved live in the spotlight. Concern can cross into intrusion. Curiosity can turn into pressure. Private moment once exposed to endless interpretation, may never fully return to its original meaning. Perhaps the real lesson lies not in what happened, but in how quickly the world reacted, and how difficult it is to pull back once fear takes hold. Until facts speak clearly, restraint remains the most humane response. Thank you for staying with us until the end. We appreciate your time, your curiosity, and your willingness to look beyond headlines and speculation. If this story encouraged you to pause, reflect, or question the way information spreads, and it has served a meaningful purpose, we'll continue to bring you stories with depth, context, and respect for the people at their center. Has been Behind the Bulletin. Thank you for joining us.